My name is Jake Thompson. I just turned 18, and I thought becoming an adult meant freedom. Instead, it meant finally being old enough to discover that the person I trusted most in the world had been lying to me for years. The discovery that would change everything came on a Tuesday morning in late June, 3 weeks after my high school graduation. I was sitting at our kitchen table with my laptop, finalizing my enrollment paperwork for State University, when I realized I needed the account information for my college savings fund to set up the tuition payment plan. For 4 years, since I was 14 years old, my father and I had been following what he called our father-son college plan. The deal was simple. Every dollar I earned from part-time jobs, he would match and put into a special savings account dedicated to my college education. I had worked at the local grocery store, mowed lawns in the summer, shoveled snow in the winter, and done odd jobs for neighbors, religiously saving every penny I could. By my calculations, I had earned and saved approximately $40,000 over those 4 years. With Dad's matching contributions, the account should have contained around $80,000, enough to cover most of my 4-year degree at State University without requiring massive student loans. Dad, I need the login information for the college fund account, I called out to him. He was in the living room watching the morning news, which had become his routine since being laid off from his construction management job 8 months earlier. What do you need that for? He called back. I need to set up the payment plan for fall semester. Tuition is due in 6 weeks. There was a long pause before he responded. Let me handle that. Jake, you don't need to worry about the payment details. Dad, I'm 18 now. I should understand how my own college fund works. The account is in my name for tax purposes. I'll take care of transferring the money when we need it. This struck me as odd, but I didn't think too much about it at the time. Dad had always handled the financial details of our arrangement, and I had trusted him completely. He was the one who had insisted we start the college fund in the first place, back when I was a freshman in high school struggling to figure out how I was going to afford higher education. College is the most important investment you'll ever make, he had told me on my 14th birthday. If you're willing to work hard and save money, I'll match every dollar you put in. By the time you graduate high school, you'll have enough saved to get through college without drowning in debt. It had seemed like an incredible offer from a father who wanted to ensure his son had opportunities he had never had. Dad had dropped out of high school when he was 16 to work construction, and while he had eventually gotten his GED and worked his way up to a management position, he had always regretted not going to college. I don't want you to make the same mistakes I made, he would say whenever I complained about working weekends or missing social events to earn money for the college fund. Education is the one thing nobody can ever take away from you. So for 4 years, I had worked religiously, saving every dollar I could while watching Dad supposedly match my contributions. When I deposited $200 from my grocery store job, he would show me a bank statement indicating that he had added another $200 to the account. When I saved $500 from a summer landscaping job, he would produce documentation showing that our college fund had grown by $1,000. The account statements he showed me were always printed pages that looked official, with the bank logo and account numbers and running balances that seemed to increase steadily over time. By the time I graduated high school, the statements showed a balance of just over $80,000, exactly what I expected based on my contributions and his promised matching funds. But that Tuesday morning in June, something felt wrong about Dad's reluctance to give me the account information. I was 18 years old, I was about to start college, and I had earned half of the money in that account through 4 years of hard work. I felt like I deserved to understand how my own college fund was structured. Dad, can I at least see the most recent statement? I asked, walking into the living room. I want to make sure we have enough for the first semester. Jake, I told you, I'll handle it. You don't need to worry about the details. I'm not worried about the details. I just want to see where we stand. We're fine. We have plenty of money for college. Then why won't you show me the statement? Dad muted the television and turned to look at me, and I could see something in his expression that I had never seen before, something that looked like panic. Jake, there are some complications with the account that I'm working to resolve, but it's going to be fine. What kind of complications? Just some technical issues with how the account was structured. Banking stuff. Nothing for you to worry about. Dad, this is my money we're talking about. Half of it is money I earned. I think I have a right to know what's going on. It's not that simple. The account is more complicated than you realize. Then explain it to me. Dad was quiet for a long moment, and I could see him trying to figure out what to say. Jake, I need you to trust me on this. I'm handling the situation, and everything is going to work out. What situation? Dad, you're scaring me. There's no reason to be scared. I just need some time to sort out the account issues. How much time? A few weeks, maybe a month. Dad, I need to pay tuition in 6 weeks. I know, and we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out, or you'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. This conversation was setting off every alarm bell in my mind. For 4 years, Dad had been completely transparent about the college fund, showing me statements and explaining how compound interest worked and celebrating every milestone as we got closer to our $80,000 goal. Now, suddenly, he was being evasive and secretive about the account he had always presented as our shared project. Dad, I want to see a current bank statement. Today. Jake, I can't do that right now. Why not? Because the statements are at the bank, and I haven't picked up the most recent one yet. Can't you access the account online? The online system is down for maintenance. Dad, that doesn't make sense. Banks don't shut down their entire online system for maintenance during business hours. This is a small credit union, Jake. They don't have the same systems as the big banks. I had never heard Dad mention that our college fund was at a credit union. For 4 years, all the statements he had shown me had the logo of First National Bank, the same bank where he had his checking account and where I had my savings account from my grocery store job. I thought our account was at First National. No, we moved it to a credit union for better interest rates. When? Last year sometime. And you didn't tell me? It wasn't important. It's the same money, just at a different institution. Every answer Dad gave me raised more questions and made me more suspicious. I decided to take a more direct approach. Dad, I want to go to the bank with you today and look at the account. That's not possible. Why not? Because I'm not feeling well, and I don't want to drive across town. I can drive. I have my license now. Jake, I need you to drop this. I'm handling the college fund, and everything is going to be fine. Dad, either there's money in the account, or there isn't. It's not complicated. There's money in the account. How much money? Enough for college. How much, exactly? I don't know the exact amount off the top of my head. You don't know how much money is in the account that you've been managing for 4 years. I know approximately how much is there. What's the approximate amount? Dad was quiet for a long moment, and I could see him struggling to come up with an answer. Jake, why are you interrogating me like this? Because you're acting like someone who's hiding something. I'm not hiding anything. I'm just trying to protect you from unnecessary stress. What would I be stressed about? Nothing. That's my point. Dad, if there's nothing to be stressed about, then show me the bank statement. Fine, he said finally. I'll get you a statement. But I need a few days to get the paperwork organized. Why do you need a few days to get a bank statement? Because the account is complicated, and I want to make sure you understand it properly. Dad, a bank statement is a bank statement. It shows deposits, withdrawals, and a current balance. How complicated can it be? More complicated than you realize. That afternoon, while Dad was running errands, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I drove to First National Bank, where I had always assumed our college fund was located, and asked to speak with someone about account information. I'd like to inquire about a savings account that should be in my father's name, I told the customer service representative. It's a college fund that he's been managing for me. I can help you with that, but you'll need to have your father with you, since you're not listed as an account holder. I understand, but can you at least tell me if the account exists? The name would be Thomas Thompson, and it would be a savings account with a balance of around $80,000. The representative looked up the information on her computer. I do see a Thomas Thompson in our system, but the savings account balance is much lower than $80,000. My heart sank. How much lower? I can't give you specific balance information without your father present, but I can tell you that it's significantly lower. Can you tell me if there have been any large withdrawals recently? Again, I can't provide specific transaction information without the account holder present. What can you tell me? I can tell you that your father has been a customer here for many years, and that there have been some concerns about his account activity recently. What kind of concerns? I really can't say more without speaking to your father directly. I left the bank feeling sick to my stomach. The account existed, but the balance was significantly lower than $80,000, and there had been concerns about Dad's account activity. None of this sounded like the straightforward college savings plan that Dad had always described. That evening, when Dad returned from his errands, I confronted him with what I had learned. I went to First National today. Dad's face went pale. You did what? I asked about our college fund account. Jake, you had no right to do that. I had every right. It's my money. The account is in my name. Half the money in that account is money I earned and gave to you to save for college. And I've been saving it for college. Then why did the bank representative tell me that the balance is significantly lower than $80,000? Dad sat down heavily on the couch and put his head in his hands. Jake, there have been some financial complications since I lost my job. What kind of complications? I've had to borrow from the college fund to cover some emergency expenses. You've been spending my college money? I've been borrowing it. I'm going to pay it back. How much have you borrowed? Not much. A few $1,000s here and there. Dad, the bank representative said the balance was significantly lower than $80,000. That sounds like more than a few thousand. It's complicated, Jake. Stop saying it's complicated. How much money is left in the account? Dad was quiet for a long time before he finally answered. About $12,000. The words hit me like a physical blow. $12,000. Out of $80,000 that should have been there. You spent $68,000 of my college money? I borrowed it. I'm going to pay it back. How? You don't have a job. I'm working on some opportunities. What opportunities? Business opportunities. Investment opportunities. Dad, what did you spend the money on? Emergency expenses. Bills. Things we needed. $68,000 in emergency expenses. It wasn't all at once. It was over several months. What kind of bills cost $68,000? Dad was quiet again, and I could see that he was struggling to come up with an explanation that would make sense. Dad, what did you really spend the money on? Jake, I don't want to get into all the details. I want to get into all the details. This is my future we're talking about. I know, and I'm going to fix it. How are you going to fix it? Where are you going to get $68,000? I'm working on it. Working on it how? I have some investments that should pay off soon. What investments? Just investments. I could tell that Dad was not being honest with me, and I was getting more frustrated and angry with every evasive answer. Dad, I need to know exactly what happened to my college money, and I need to know right now. Jake, you're too young to understand some of these adult financial issues. I'm 18 years old. I'm legally an adult, and this is my money we're talking about. It's not your money. It's money that I saved in an account that happens to be designated for your college expenses. Half of it is money that I earned and gave to you to put in that account. And I put it in the account. And then you took it out of the account. I borrowed it. Without asking me. You were in high school. You didn't need to be involved in adult financial decisions. This wasn't an adult financial decision. This was spending my money without my permission. Jake, I'm your father. I make financial decisions for this family. Not about money I earned. Not about my college fund. Everything in this house, including your college fund, is my responsibility until you turn 18. Well, I'm 18 now. So what's your excuse now? Dad didn't have an answer for that. Dad, I want to know exactly what you spend the money on, and I want to know your plan for paying it back. I can't give you all those details right now. Why not? Because it's complicated, and I don't want to worry you unnecessarily. I'm already worried. Finding out that $68,000 of my college money is missing is pretty much the most worried I've ever been in my life. Jake, I understand that you're upset. I'm not upset. I'm furious. You've been lying to me for months about the status of my college fund. I haven't been lying. I've been trying to protect you. Protect me from what? From adult problems that you don't need to worry about. I do need to worry about them if they involve my college money. Jake, I'm going to figure this out. I just need some time. How much time? I don't know. A few months, maybe. Dad, I start college in 2 months. I need that money now. I know, and I'm working on it. Working on what? Exactly. I have some business deals that should come through soon. What business deals? You've been unemployed for 8 months. I've been working on some consulting opportunities. In construction. In various fields. What various fields? Jake, I don't want to get into all the details until I know more about how these opportunities are going to work out. I could see that this conversation was going nowhere. Dad was being evasive about everything, and I wasn't getting the information I needed to understand what had really happened to my college fund. That night, I decided to do some detective work of my own. While Dad was sleeping, I went through his desk in the home office, looking for bank statements or financial documents that might explain where the money had gone. What I found was worse than I had imagined. In a folder labeled Financial Records, I found bank statements from our college fund account going back 18 months. The statements told a clear story of systematic withdrawals that had drained the account from a high balance of $82,000 down to the current balance of just under $12,000. But the withdrawals weren't for emergency expenses or bills, as Dad had claimed. According to the bank statements, the money had been withdrawn in large chunks. $5,000 here, $10,000 there, always in amounts that were just under the federal reporting requirements for cash transactions. Even more damning, I found receipts and documentation that showed where the money had actually gone. Dad had a gambling problem, and he had been using my college fund to finance trips to Atlantic City casinos. There were hotel receipts from casino resorts, restaurant receipts from casino buffets, and even some casino players' club cards with Dad's name on them. There were also printed emails from casino hosts inviting Dad to return for complimentary accommodations and exclusive gaming opportunities. The most devastating piece of evidence was a series of ATM receipts showing cash withdrawals from our college fund account made at ATMs inside various Atlantic City casinos. The dates on the receipts corresponded exactly with the dates of large withdrawals shown on the bank statements. Dad had been systematically gambling away my college money, and he had been lying to me about it for at least 18 months. I also found evidence that the gambling problem was much bigger than just my college fund. There were credit card statements showing cash advances that had been used for gambling, personal loan documents from finance companies that specialized in high-risk lending, and even some paperwork from a pawn shop where Dad had apparently sold some family jewelry. The total amount of Dad's gambling-related debt appeared to be well over $100,000, with my college fund being just one of many sources of money that he had tapped to feed his addiction. I sat in Dad's office until almost dawn, going through all the financial documents and trying to piece together the full scope of what had happened. By the time the sun came up, I understood that this wasn't just about my college money. This was about a gambling addiction that had destroyed our family's financial security and potentially put us at risk of losing our house. But I also understood something else. I was 18 years old, which meant I was legally an adult, which meant I had options that I wouldn't have had even a few months earlier. The next morning, I confronted Dad with the evidence I had found. I know about Atlantic City. Dad was eating breakfast when I said this, and he immediately stopped chewing and looked up at me with an expression of panic. "What are you talking about?" I spread the casino receipts, ATM slips, and bank statements out on the kitchen table in front of him. "I'm talking about the fact that you've been gambling away my college money for the past year and a half." Dad stared at the evidence for a long moment, and I could see him trying to figure out what to say. "Jake, I can explain." "I don't want you to explain. I want you to tell me the truth about everything. I've been going through a difficult time since I lost my job." "So you decided to start gambling with my college fund?" "It wasn't like that." "What was it like?" "I started going to Atlantic City as a way to relax and get away from the stress of being unemployed. And then I started playing some games, just small amounts at first. And then I had some bad luck. Bad luck that cost $68,000 of my money? It wasn't supposed to be that much." "How much was it supposed to be?" "I thought I could win some money to help with our financial situation. By gambling with money that was supposed to pay for my college, I thought I could win enough to pay back what I borrowed and still have money left over for college." "Dad, that's not how gambling works." "I know that now. You didn't know that when you started gambling with my college fund. I thought I could control it." "Control what?" "Control how much I spent. But you couldn't control it." "No, because you have a gambling addiction." "I don't have an addiction. I just had some bad luck." "Dad, you've spent over $68,000 of my college money at casinos. That's not bad luck. That's an addiction." "Jake, I'm going to pay it all back." "How?" "I'm working on some opportunities." "What opportunities?" "More gambling." "No, legitimate business opportunities." "What business opportunities?" "I'm talking to some people about construction consulting work." "Dad, even if you get a construction consulting job, how long would it take you to save $68,000? "I don't know. A few years, maybe." "A few years? I need that money for college now." "Jake, I know this is difficult, but we'll figure out a way to pay for college." "We'll figure out a way. Or I'll figure out a way. We'll figure it out together. Like we figured out the college savings plan together?" "That's not fair." "What's not fair is that you stole my college money to feed your gambling addiction." "I didn't steal it. I borrowed it. Without asking me. I was going to pay it back." "When?" "As soon as I could." "Dad, this is theft. You took money that didn't belong to you and used it for purposes that I never agreed to." "Jake, I'm your father. I make financial decisions for this family, not about money that I earned. And not anymore, because I'm 18 now." "What does that mean?" "It means I'm going to report this to the police." Dad's face went white. "You're going to what?" "I'm going to report you for stealing my college fund." "Jake, You can't do that. Yes, I can. I'm an adult now, and I have the right to report crimes that have been committed against me. This isn't a crime. This is a family financial issue. This is theft of funds that belong to me. The money was in an account in my name. The money was in an account that you created specifically to save money that I earned for my college education. You had a fiduciary responsibility to use that money only for the purpose it was intended. Where did you learn about fiduciary responsibility? I learned about it last night when I was researching what legal options I have when someone steals money from me. Jake, please don't do anything rash. Reporting theft isn't rash. It's what you're supposed to do when someone steals from you. I'm not just someone. I'm your father. Which makes this worse, not better. Jake, if you report this to the police, it will destroy our family. You already destroyed our family when you decided to gamble away my future. Please, just give me some time to fix this. How much time? A few months. To do what? To pay back the money. With what money? You don't have a job. You have over $100,000 in gambling debt, and you just spent the last of our family savings. How do you know about the other debt? Because I went through all your financial records last night. Dad put his head in his hands. Jake, I know I've made some mistakes. Some mistakes. Dad, you've destroyed our family's financial future because of your gambling addiction. It's not an addiction. Then what is it? It's a problem that I'm working to solve. By continuing to gamble? No, I'm not gambling anymore. When did you stop? Last week. What happened last week? I realized that I had a problem. It took you $68,000 of my college money to realize you had a problem? Jake, I'm sorry. I know I've hurt you. You haven't just hurt me. You've potentially ruined my entire future. That's not true. We'll find another way to pay for college. What other way? Student loans? I'll be in debt for the rest of my life. Lots of people take out student loans. Lots of people don't have fathers who gamble away their college funds. Jake, please, I'm begging you, don't report this to the police. Give me one good reason why I shouldn't. Because I'm your father, and I love you, and I'm going to make this right. How are you going to make this right? I'll get a job, and I'll pay back every penny. When? As soon as possible. That's not a timeline, Dad. That's a vague promise. I can't give you an exact timeline, because I don't know how long it will take to find a job and start earning money again. But you can promise that you won't gamble anymore? Yes. You promise. I promise. Dad, you've been lying to me for over a year about the college fund. Why should I believe your promises now? Because I've learned my lesson. What lesson? That gambling is dangerous and that I can't control it. So, you admit you have a gambling addiction? I admit that I have a problem with gambling. A problem that cost me $68,000. Yes. And you think saying you're sorry is enough to fix that? No, I think saying I'm sorry is the first step toward fixing it. What are the other steps? I'll get help for my gambling problem, and I'll get a job, and I'll pay back the money. What kind of help? Counseling, support groups, whatever it takes. When will you start getting help? Right away. Today. I'll start looking for resources today. Dad, I want to believe you. But I don't think I can trust you anymore. I understand why you feel that way. Do you? Because from my perspective, you've been lying to me about something incredibly important for over a year. You've put my entire future at risk to feed your gambling addiction. And now you're asking me to trust you to fix it. Jake, I know I've broken your trust, but I'm asking you to give me a chance to earn it back. How long? How long what? How long do I give you to earn back my trust and pay back my college money? I don't know. A reasonable amount of time. What's a reasonable amount of time to pay back $68,000 when you don't have a job? I don't know, Jake. but I'll work as hard as I can to make it happen as quickly as possible. That's not good enough. What do you want from me? I want you to sign a legal agreement promising to pay back the money by a specific date. What kind of legal agreement? A promissory note that says you owe me $68,000 and that you'll pay it back by a specific date with interest. What happens if I can't pay it back by that date? Then I report the theft to the police and pursue criminal charges. Jake, that's blackmail. No, that's a consequence for stealing from me. I didn't steal from you. Yes, you did. And unless you want to face criminal charges for that theft, you'll sign a legal agreement to pay back the money. Dad was quiet for a long time, and I could see him weighing his options. What date would I have to pay it back by? 1 year from today. That's not enough time. Then how much time do you need? I don't know. Maybe 2 years. Fine. 2 years. But if you miss any payments or if you gamble even once during those 2 years, the deal is off and I go to the police immediately. How would you know if I gamble? Because I'm going to be monitoring your finances. You're going to give me access to all your bank accounts and credit cards, and you're going to account for every dollar you spend. Jake, that's not reasonable. What's not reasonable is trusting someone who just stole $68,000 from me. I can't agree to let you monitor all my finances. Then I'll report the theft to the police today. Jake, please be reasonable. I am being reasonable. I'm giving you a choice. Face criminal charges now, or sign a legal agreement to pay back the money and submit to financial monitoring to ensure you don't gamble anymore. What if I can't find a job? Then you'd better find a way to make money legally, because the alternative is prison. Prison. Dad, stealing $68,000 is a felony. If you're convicted, you could go to prison for several years. I didn't know that. Well, now you do. Jake, I need some time to think about this. How much time? A few days. You have until tomorrow morning to decide. Either you sign the promissory note and agree to the monitoring, or I go to the police. Tomorrow morning? Yes. That's not enough time to think about such a big decision. Dad, it's not a complicated decision. Either you pay back the money you stole from me, or you face criminal charges for theft. Jake, you're my son. I can't believe you would send your own father to prison. And I can't believe my own father would steal my college fund to gamble with. That's different. How is that different? Because I was trying to help our family by winning money to solve our financial problems. By gambling with money that belonged to me, I thought I could win enough to pay you back and have money left over. Dad, that's exactly the kind of thinking that proves you have a gambling addiction. I don't have an addiction. Then explain to me how someone without a gambling addiction ends up stealing $68,000 from their own son to gamble with. Dad didn't have an answer for that. I'll give you my decision tomorrow morning, he said finally. Fine. But Dad. Yes. If you decide not to sign the agreement, I want you to understand that I will follow through on reporting this to the police. I understand. And if you sign the agreement, but then violate it by gambling or missing payments, I'll also report it to the police. I understand. Good, because I'm not bluffing about any of this. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the conversation with Dad, and wondering if I was doing the right thing by threatening him with criminal charges. He was my father, and I loved him. But he had also betrayed my trust in the worst possible way. I also kept thinking about my future, and what would happen if I couldn't afford to go to college. I had been accepted to State University with the expectation that I would be able to pay tuition with my college savings. Without that money, I would need to take out massive student loans or postpone college indefinitely while I tried to earn money. The next morning, Dad appeared at the kitchen table with a handwritten letter. I've made my decision, he said, and I'll sign the promissory note and agree to the financial monitoring. Good. But I need you to understand how difficult this is for me. How difficult it is for you. Yes, having my son monitor my finances and threaten me with prison is not easy. Dad, having my father steal my college fund to gamble with wasn't easy either. I know. I'm just saying that this whole situation is hard on both of us. The difference is that you created this situation, and I'm just trying to find a way to fix it. I understand that. What does your letter say? Dad handed me the letter, and I read it aloud. Dear Jake, I acknowledge that I have used money from your college fund account for purposes other than your education. I am sorry for this mistake, and I am committed to paying back the full amount as quickly as possible. I agree to sign a legal promissory note and to submit to financial monitoring to ensure that I do not gamble anymore. I love you, and I hope that we can repair our relationship. Love, Dad. This is a nice letter, Dad, but it doesn't acknowledge the full scope of what happened. What do you mean? It says you used money for purposes other than education, but it doesn't say you used it for gambling, and it calls it a mistake instead of acknowledging that it was theft. Jake, I'm trying to be honest about what I did wrong. Then be completely honest. You didn't use my money for other purposes. You gambled it away at Atlantic City casinos. And it wasn't a mistake. It was a deliberate decision that you made over and over again for more than a year. Fine. Do you want me to rewrite the letter? I want you to acknowledge the truth about what you did. Dad rewrote the letter. Dear Jake, I acknowledge that I have gambled away $68,000 of your college fund money at Atlantic City casinos over the past 18 months. I stole this money from you to feed my gambling addiction, and I lied to you about what I was doing. I am sorry for betraying your trust and jeopardizing your future. I agree to sign a legal promissory note to pay back the full amount within 2 years, and I agree to submit to complete financial monitoring to ensure that I do not gamble anymore. I love you, and I hope that you can eventually forgive me. Love, Dad. That's better, I said after reading the revised letter. Now what? Now we go to a lawyer and get a proper promissory note drafted. Do we need a lawyer for that? Yes, because I want to make sure it's legally binding and enforceable. How much will a lawyer cost? I'll pay for it out of the $12,000 that's left in the college fund account. Jake, you should save that money for college. Dad, I'm going to need legal representation if this situation gets complicated. The lawyer fees are part of the cost of your gambling addiction. We went to see attorney Patricia Martinez that afternoon. I had found her online by searching for lawyers who specialized in family financial disputes and theft cases. This is an unusual situation, she said after I explained what had happened. Usually when we see theft within families, it involves much smaller amounts of money or situations where the victim is elderly or incapacitated. What makes this case different? I asked. The amount of money involved, and the fact that you're an 18-year-old adult who is sophisticated enough to understand your legal rights and take action to protect them. Is what my father did actually a crime? Yes, it's theft. The fact that the money was in an account in his name doesn't matter if the money was specifically designated for your education and included funds that you earned yourself. What would happen if I reported it to the police? Your father would likely be charged with theft of more than $50,000, which is a second-degree felony in this state. If convicted, he could face up to 7 years in prison and be required to pay restitution. And what about the promissory note option? That's a reasonable alternative that allows your father to avoid criminal charges while ensuring that you have legal recourse if he doesn't follow through on his promise to repay the money. What should the terms of the note include? The total amount owed, the payment schedule, the interest rate, and the consequences for default. What kind of consequences? Typically, default on a promissory note allows the creditor to pursue civil remedies like wage garnishment or property seizure. But in your case, you might also want to include a provision that allows you to pursue criminal charges if your father defaults on the agreement. Is that legal? It's legal to include a provision stating that you reserve the right to report the original theft to police if the promissory note is not honored. What about the financial monitoring? That would need to be a separate agreement, but it's certainly something you can negotiate as a condition of not reporting the theft immediately. Attorney Martinez helped us draft a comprehensive promissory note that included all the terms I wanted. Total amount owed, $68,000. Payment schedule, monthly payments of $3,000 for 24 months. Interest rate, 6% annually. Financial monitoring. Dad would provide monthly bank statements and receipts for all expenditures. Consequences for default. I would have the right to pursue both civil remedies and criminal charges. Mr. Thompson, do you understand all the terms of this agreement? Attorney Martinez asked Dad. Yes. Do you understand that if you default on this note, your son can pursue criminal charges against you for the original theft? Yes. Do you understand that monthly payments of $3,000 will require you to find substantial employment very quickly? Yes. Do you have a plan for how you're going to earn enough money to make these payments? I'm actively looking for work in construction management. What's the realistic timeline for finding that kind of work? I hope to have a job within the next month or two. And what's the realistic salary range for that kind of work? Probably $60,000 to $80,000 annually, depending on the specific position. So you understand that even if you find a job at the top of that salary range, the loan payments will represent a significant portion of your income? Yes, I understand. Mr. Thompson, I have to ask, do you believe you can realistically make these payments? Dad was quiet for a moment before answering. I believe I can if I work hard and stay focused on my priorities. And your highest priority is repaying your son? Yes. What about your gambling problem? Do you have a plan for addressing that? I've already started attending Gamblers Anonymous meetings, and I'm going to continue with that program. How long have you been attending meetings? I went to my first meeting 2 days ago. So you're very early in your recovery process. Yes. Mr. Thompson, I want to be very clear with you about something. Gambling addiction has a very high relapse rate, especially in the first year of recovery. If you relapse and start gambling again, you will not be able to make these payments to your son. I understand. And if you don't make the payments, your son has the right to have you prosecuted for theft, which could result in several years in prison. I understand. Are you prepared for that level of accountability? Yes. Jake, do you have any questions about the agreement? Just one. What happens if my father gets a job, but then loses it? Is he still required to make the full payments? The promissory note requires payments regardless of his employment status. However, you always have the option to modify the terms if circumstances change significantly. But I'm not required to modify the terms. No, you're not required to modify anything. This is your decision. Good. Dad and I both signed the promissory note, and Attorney Martinez had it notarized and filed with the county clerk's office. Mr. Thompson, your first payment is due 1 month from today, she said as we were leaving her office. I understand. And Jake, if your father misses that payment or violates any other term of the agreement, call me immediately. I will. Over the next month, I watched Dad begin what appeared to be a genuine effort to rebuild his life and our relationship. He attended Gamblers Anonymous meetings 3 times a week. He applied for dozens of construction management jobs, and he provided me with daily updates on his activities and finances. I had 2 job interviews this week, he told me as we reviewed his expenditures for the month. One was for a project manager position with a commercial construction company, and the other was for a site supervisor position with a residential builder. How did the interviews go? I think they went well. Both companies said they would get back to me within a week. What about gambling? Any temptation? I think about it sometimes, especially when I'm stressed about the job search. But the GA meetings are helping me understand that those thoughts are normal and that I need to focus on healthier ways to deal with stress. What kind of healthier ways? Exercise, talking to my sponsor, calling the GA hotline when I'm having urges. Do you think the program is working? It's too early to know for sure, but I feel like I'm learning a lot about why I started gambling and what I need to do to stay away from it. What did you learn about why you started gambling? I learned that I was using gambling as a way to escape from feelings of failure and inadequacy after I lost my job. And what do you need to do to stay away from it? I need to face my problems directly instead of trying to escape from them. And I need to be honest with you and with myself about what I'm thinking and feeling. Dad, can I ask you something? Of course. When you were gambling away my college fund, did you ever think about what that would do to my future? Yes, I thought about it, but I also convinced myself that I was going to win enough money to pay you back and have extra money left over. Did you really believe that was possible? At the time, yes, but now I understand that was just the addiction talking. Gambling addicts always believe they're going to win big and solve all their problems. But you know that's not how gambling works. I know that now. The house always has an edge, and the longer you play, the more likely you are to lose. So, why did you keep playing after you started losing? Because I kept thinking that the next bet would be the one that would win back everything I had lost. For 18 months. Dad, that's a long time to keep believing something that wasn't true. I know. That's why I need the GA program and the ongoing support. Gambling addiction changes the way your brain works, and it takes time to retrain your thinking. Do you think you would have stopped gambling if I hadn't discovered what was happening? Honestly, I don't know. I was in pretty deep, and I was running out of money to gamble with. So you might have found other sources of money? I might have. That's what scares me about how far I had fallen. What other sources of money were you considering? I had thought about taking out a second mortgage on the house. You would have risked our home to continue gambling? I thought about it, but I also knew that would have been crossing a line that I couldn't come back from. Dad, you already crossed a line that you couldn't come back from when you started gambling with my college money. You're right. I guess I wasn't thinking clearly about any of it. 3 weeks into the first month, Dad got a job offer from one of the construction companies where he had interviewed. It's a project manager position for commercial construction projects, he told me excitedly. The salary is $75,000 annually, plus benefits. That's great, Dad. When do you start? Next Monday. And you're confident you can handle the job? Yes. It's very similar to what I was doing before I got laid off. What about the $3,000 monthly payments? Will you be able to make those on a $75,000 salary? It's going to be tight, but I think I can manage it if I'm careful with my other expenses. What does careful with other expenses mean? It means I'll need to stick to a strict budget and not spend money on anything that isn't absolutely necessary. Including gambling, especially including gambling. Dad's first payment was due on schedule, and he made it on time by giving me a check for $3,000. How does it feel to make the first payment? I asked. It feels good to be taking concrete action to fix what I did wrong. And how does it feel to give me $3,000 of your salary? It feels like a reminder of how much damage my gambling addiction caused. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I think it's a good thing. I need to be reminded of the consequences of my actions so that I don't make the same mistakes again. Dad, can I tell you how this whole experience has affected me? Yes, I want to know. It's made me realize that I can't depend on other people, even people I love and trust, to protect my interests. I have to be prepared to protect myself. What do you mean? I mean that for 4 years, I trusted you completely to manage our college savings plan. I never questioned your statements, or asked to see bank documents, or wondered whether you were being honest with me. And now I realize that was naive. I should have been monitoring the account myself and asking more questions. Jake, you were just a kid. You shouldn't have had to worry about whether your father was stealing from you. But I did have to worry about it, because you were stealing from me. You're right. I'm sorry. Dad, I don't want you to apologize anymore. I want you to understand how this experience has changed me. How has it changed you? It's made me realize that I'm the only person who can be trusted to protect my future and my interests. Other people, even people who love me, might have their own problems and priorities that conflict with my well-being. That sounds like a very cynical way to look at relationships. Maybe, but it's also a realistic way to look at relationships. Do you think you'll ever be able to trust me again? I don't know. I hope so, but it's going to take time and consistent behavior from you. What kind of consistent behavior? Making the payments on time, not gambling, being completely honest with me about your finances and your recovery process. And if I do all those things, then maybe eventually I'll be able to trust you with small things again. But I don't think I'll ever again trust you with something as important as my financial future. I understand, and I think that's probably appropriate. Over the next year, Dad made all his payments on time and continued attending Gamblers Anonymous meetings regularly. He also began seeing a therapist who specialized in addiction recovery, and he joined a support group for family members affected by gambling addiction. The support group has been really helpful, he told me during one of our monthly check-ins. It's helped me understand how my gambling affected not just me, but you and the rest of our family. What have you learned? I've learned that gambling addiction is a family disease, and that my actions caused trauma for you that will probably take years to fully heal. What kind of trauma? Financial trauma, trust trauma, the trauma of having your future threatened by someone who was supposed to protect it. Do you think I have trauma from this experience? I think you've had to grow up faster than you should have, and I think you've had to take on responsibilities that should have been mine. Like what? Like monitoring my finances, like threatening me with criminal charges, like having to become the adult in our relationship when you were still just 18 years old. Do you resent me for threatening you with criminal charges? No, I'm grateful that you gave me a chance to make things right instead of just reporting me to the police immediately. What would have happened if I had reported you immediately? I probably would have gone to prison, and you would have never gotten your money back. And now I'm learning to live with the consequences of my actions, and I'm working to rebuild your trust and pay back what I owe you. Do you ever think about gambling anymore? I think about it sometimes, especially when I'm stressed about making the payments or worried about money in general. What do you do when you have those thoughts? I call my GA sponsor, or I go to a meeting, or I remind myself of how much damage gambling has already caused. Does it work? So far, yes. But I know I need to stay vigilant, because addiction is a lifelong challenge. Halfway through the 2-year payment period, I started my sophomore year at State University. I was able to pay for my first year with the remaining money from the college fund, plus the payments Dad had made, but I also had to take out some student loans to cover the full cost. How do you feel about having to take out loans? Dad asked me. I'm not happy about it, but I'm managing. The important thing is that I'm still able to go to college. Do you think the loans will create financial hardship for you after you graduate? Probably some, but not as much hardship as not going to college at all would have created. I'm sorry that my actions resulted in you having debt that you shouldn't have had to take on. Dad, I appreciate the apology, but what I really need is for you to continue making the payments so that I can minimize the amount of additional debt I need to take on. I understand, and I'm committed to making every payment on time. What about your job? Are you still enjoying the work? Yes, and I've been getting good performance reviews. My supervisor says I might be eligible for a promotion next year. What would that mean financially? Probably a salary increase of $10,000 to $15,000. Would that make the payments easier? Yes, definitely. Dad, can I ask you something personal? Of course. Do you ever regret the gambling, apart from the impact it had on me? What do you mean? Do you miss the excitement of gambling? Do you ever wish you could go back to Atlantic City? Sometimes I miss the excitement, but I don't miss the anxiety and the lies and the feeling of being out of control. What do you miss about the excitement? I miss the feeling that anything was possible, that with one good bet I could solve all my problems. But you know that was an illusion. Yes, I know that now, but at the time, it felt real. What have you replaced that excitement with? Mostly just normal life. Work, GA meetings, spending time with family, hobbies. What hobbies? I've started playing guitar again, something I used to do before I got married. Do you like it? Yes, it's relaxing, and it gives me something to do with my hands and my mind. Is it as exciting as gambling? No, but it's more sustainable, and it doesn't cost me thousands of dollars or threaten other people's futures. During my second year of college, I decided to major in finance and accounting, partly because of my experience with Dad's gambling addiction and the financial investigation I had conducted. What made you choose that major? My academic advisor asked. I learned a lot about financial systems and legal protections when I had to deal with a family financial crisis. What kind of crisis? My father had a gambling addiction and spent my college fund. I had to learn about financial fraud, promissory notes, and legal remedies to protect myself. That sounds like a difficult situation. It was, but it also taught me a lot about how money works and how people can abuse financial trust. And you want to work in that field. I think I want to help other people who are dealing with financial abuse or addiction-related financial problems. That's a great career goal. Have you considered specializing in forensic accounting? What's forensic accounting? It's using accounting skills to investigate financial crimes and help with legal cases. That sounds exactly like what I want to do. My experience with Dad's gambling addiction had given me practical skills in financial investigation that most accounting students didn't have. I knew how to trace money through bank statements, identify suspicious spending patterns, and document financial crimes. You have very good instincts for this kind of work. My forensic accounting professor told me after I presented a case study based on Dad's gambling spending. I learned by doing it in real life. That's unusual for someone your age. It's unusual for someone any age to have to investigate their own father's financial crimes. How did that experience affect your relationship with your father? It changed our relationship completely. I can't look at him the same way anymore. Do you still have a relationship with him? Yes, but it's more like a business relationship now. He makes his payments, I monitor his finances, and we check in regularly about his recovery progress. Do you miss having a normal father-son relationship? I miss having the father-son relationship I thought we had before I discovered the gambling. But I don't miss being naive about his trustworthiness. Do you think you'll ever be able to trust him again? I think I'll be able to trust him with small things eventually, but I'll never again trust him with anything that could affect my future or my financial security. That sounds like a mature way to handle the situation. I didn't have a choice, but to become mature about it. When someone steals your college fund, you either become mature quickly or you lose your future. Dad continued, making his monthly payments consistently throughout the 2-year period. There were a few months when I could tell the payments were difficult for him to make, especially when he had unexpected expenses like car repairs or medical bills. "Are you okay financially?" I asked during one of our monthly check-ins. "It's tight, but I'm managing." "What does tight mean?" "It means I have to be very careful about every dollar I spend, and I don't have much left over after making the payment to you." "Are you resenting the payments?" "No, I'm not resenting them. They're a consequence of my actions, and I accept responsibility for that. But they're making your life difficult? They're making my life more challenging than it would be otherwise. But my life should be challenging right now. I need to experience the consequences of what I did. Do you think the consequences are appropriate?" "I think the consequences are more generous than they could have been. You could have had me prosecuted for theft, and I could be in prison right now instead of working and living at home. Do you ever think about what would have happened if you had gone to prison?" "Yes, and it motivates me to stay focused on recovery and on making the payments." "How so?" "Because I realize that you gave me a chance to make things right, and if I mess up that chance, I might not get another one." "Dad, what's the most important thing you've learned from this whole experience?" "I've learned that my actions don't just affect me. They affect the people I love, sometimes in ways that can't be undone." "What do you mean by ways that can't be undone?" "I mean that even if I pay back every penny I owe you, I can't undo the fact that I betrayed your trust and threatened your future. That damage is permanent. Do you think our relationship can ever be fully repaired?" "I hope it can be partially repaired over time, but I don't think it will ever be the same as it was before." "How do you feel about that?" "I feel sad about it, but I also accept it as a natural consequence of my choices." "What would it take for our relationship to be partially repaired?" "I think it would take me demonstrating over many years that I can be trustworthy and reliable." "And what would that look like?" "It would look like me continuing to stay away from gambling, being honest about my finances and my recovery, and being supportive of your goals and dreams instead of threatening them." "Do you think you can do those things?" "I think I can, but I also know that I need to prove it through my actions rather than just saying it." 2 years after we signed the promissory note, Dad made his final payment of $3,000. "How does it feel to have paid back the full amount?" I asked him. "It feels like I've completed the first step in trying to repair the damage I caused." "The first step?" "Yes. I think paying back the money was just the beginning. The bigger challenge is rebuilding your trust and proving that I've really changed." "How long do you think that will take?" "I don't know. Maybe years. Maybe forever." "Are you prepared for the possibility that I might never fully trust you again?" "Yes, I'm prepared for that. I understand that trust, once broken, is very difficult to rebuild." "Dad, I want you to know that I do appreciate the fact that you followed through on the promissory note." "Thank you. A lot of people in your situation would have defaulted or tried to avoid the payments. I thought about defaulting sometimes, especially when money was tight, but I knew that would just make things worse." "What kept you motivated to make the payments?" "Partly the fear of going to prison if I defaulted, but mostly the hope that I could eventually earn back some of your respect." "Do you think you've earned back some of my respect?" "I hope I've earned back some of it, but I know I have a lot more work to do." "What kind of work?" "Continuing with my recovery program, being honest about my ongoing challenges, and finding ways to support your goals instead of threatening them." "Dad, can I tell you something?" "Of course. Making you pay back the money wasn't just about the money." "What was it about?" It was about making sure you understood that your actions have consequences and that you can't just apologize your way out of serious mistakes. Do you think I understand that now? I think you understand it better than you did 2 years ago. What made the difference? Having to make those payments every month for 2 years, having to give up things you wanted because you had to pay me back, having to live with the financial consequences of your gambling addiction. Do you think the payments were more effective than counseling or GA meetings? I think they were all important, but the payments were the most concrete reminder of what your gambling addiction cost. Do you think I would have gotten better without the financial consequences? I don't know, but I think the financial consequences made your recovery more urgent and more real. Jake, do you forgive me for what I did? I forgive you for making a mistake, but I don't forgive you for the lying and the betrayal of trust. What's the difference? People make mistakes, and mistakes can be forgiven. But deliberately lying to someone and betraying their trust is a choice, and choices have permanent consequences. So you don't forgive me for lying to you about the college fund? I don't forgive you for lying to me for over a year about something that affected my entire future. Will you ever forgive me for that? I might forgive you eventually, but forgiveness doesn't mean trust, and it doesn't mean forgetting what happened. I understand. Dad, do you understand why I can't just forgive and forget? Because what I did wasn't just a momentary mistake. It was a pattern of deception that lasted for over a year. That's part of it. What else? Because forgetting what happened would make it more likely that something similar could happen again. Exactly. If I just forgave and forgot, you might think that gambling away large amounts of money is something that can be easily resolved with apologies and promises. But it's not. No, it's not. Gambling away someone's college fund is a serious crime that can destroy their future. It requires serious consequences and long-term accountability. And you think the promissory note provided that accountability? I think it provided some of that accountability. But the real accountability is going to come from your ongoing commitment to recovery and honesty. What does ongoing accountability look like? It looks like you continuing to attend GA meetings, continuing to be honest about any gambling urges you have, and continuing to prioritize other people's financial security over your own desires. I'm committed to doing all those things. We'll see. Jake, what can I do to continue earning back your trust? You can continue doing what you've been doing, making good financial decisions, being honest about your recovery, and supporting my goals instead of threatening them. And if I do those things consistently over time, then maybe eventually we can have a father-son relationship that's based on honesty and mutual respect instead of financial monitoring and legal agreements. I would like that. So would I, Dad. But it has to be earned, not just promised. 3 years after Dad completed his payments, I graduated from college with a degree in forensic accounting and was hired by a firm that specialized in financial fraud investigations. What kind of cases do you work on? People ask me. All kinds of financial fraud, but I specialize in cases involving gambling addiction and family financial abuse. What made you choose that specialty? Personal experience. My father had a gambling addiction and stole my college fund. I learned a lot about financial investigation and legal remedies while dealing with that situation. How did you handle it? I gave him a choice. Pay back the money over 2 years with financial monitoring or face criminal charges for theft. And he chose to pay it back. Yes. And he followed through on the agreement. Do you have a good relationship with him now? We have a relationship, but it's different from what it was before. I can't trust him with important financial matters, but we can have conversations and spend time together. Do you think he's really recovered from his gambling addiction? I think he's learned to manage his addiction better, but I don't think gambling addiction is something you ever fully recover from. What makes you say that? Because addiction changes your brain in ways that are permanent. People can learn to manage their addictions, but the underlying vulnerability is always there. Does that worry you? It makes me cautious about trusting him with anything important, but it doesn't prevent us from having some kind of relationship. What advice do you give to other families dealing with gambling addiction? Document everything, protect your own assets, and don't enable the addiction by covering up the consequences. What do you mean by not enabling? I mean, don't pay their gambling debts. Don't lie to cover up their behavior. And don't pretend that the addiction isn't causing real damage to the family. What about family relationships? How do you balance love and accountability? You can love someone and still hold them accountable for their actions. In fact, holding someone accountable for destructive behavior is sometimes the most loving thing you can do, even if it means involving the police or the legal system, especially if it means involving the police or the legal system. Sometimes external consequences are the only thing that can motivate someone to take their addiction seriously. Do you ever regret threatening your father with criminal charges? No, I don't regret it. I think it was necessary to get his attention and make him understand that his addiction was going to have serious consequences. What if he had chosen to face the criminal charges instead of signing the promissory note? Then he would have gone to prison, and I would have had to pay for college with student loans. But at least he would have faced appropriate consequences for his actions. And you think that would have been better than letting him off without consequences? I think people need to face consequences for their actions, especially when those actions harm other people. If my father hadn't faced consequences for gambling away my college fund, he might have continued gambling and caused even more damage. Do you think the experience made you more mature? I think it made me more realistic about money, relationships, and accountability. How so? I learned that you can't trust people just because you love them. You have to verify that their actions match their promises. That sounds cynical. Maybe, but it's also practical. Trust has to be earned and maintained through consistent behavior. What about forgiveness? Forgiveness is important, but it doesn't mean forgetting or ignoring what happened. You can forgive someone for past behavior while still protecting yourself from future behavior. And that's what you've done with your father. I've forgiven him for having an addiction, but I haven't forgotten that he chose to feed that addiction with my money, and I probably never will forget that. Today, I'm 24 years old and have been working in forensic accounting for 3 years. I've helped recover millions of dollars in stolen or misappropriated funds, and I've testified in dozens of criminal cases involving financial fraud. Dad is now 6 years sober from gambling and continues to attend GA meetings regularly. We have dinner together once a month and talk on the phone occasionally, but our relationship is cordial rather than close. Do you ever wish things had been different? He asked me recently. I wish you hadn't developed a gambling addiction, and I wish you hadn't stolen my college money. But I don't regret how I handled the situation once I discovered what you had done. Do you think I'm a bad person? I think you're a person who made some very bad decisions, but I also think you've worked hard to face the consequences of those decisions and change your behavior. Do you think we'll ever be close again? I think we can have a good relationship based on honesty and mutual respect. But I don't think we'll ever have the kind of relationship we had before when I trusted you completely. Do you miss that kind of relationship? I miss the innocence of believing that parents always protect their children's interests. But I don't miss being naive about the potential for people to prioritize their own needs over other people's well-being. Even family members, especially family members, because they have more opportunities to cause damage and more ability to hide what they're doing. That's a hard lesson to learn at 18. It was a necessary lesson to learn, and I'm glad I learned it before it could cause even more damage to my future. What do you mean? I mean that if I hadn't discovered your gambling and taken action to recover my college money, I might not have been able to afford college at all, and that would have affected my entire life trajectory. Do you think the experience has made you a better person? I think it's made me more self-reliant and more careful about who I trust with important things. And those are good qualities. They're necessary qualities for protecting yourself from people who might take advantage of your trust. Do you think I would take advantage of your trust again? I think you would try not to, but I also think addiction is unpredictable. So I'm not willing to put you in a position where you could take advantage of my trust again. What does that mean practically? It means I'll never again depend on you for anything that could affect my financial security or my future. Even if I stay sober from gambling for many more years, even then, because addiction is a lifelong vulnerability, and I can't afford to gamble with my future the way you gambled with my college money. I understand, and I think that's probably wise. Dad, can I tell you something? Of course. Despite everything that happened, I'm proud of the fact that you followed through on the promissory note and got help for your addiction. Thank you. That means a lot to me. A lot of people in your situation would have defaulted on the payments, or continued gambling, or tried to avoid taking responsibility. I thought about all those things at various times, but you didn't do them. No, because I realized that taking responsibility was the only way I could ever hope to have any kind of relationship with you. And was it worth it? Yes, definitely. Even if our relationship isn't what it used to be, I'm grateful that we can still talk to each other and spend time together. Me too, Dad. Jake, is there anything I can do now to continue rebuilding your trust? Just keep doing what you've been doing. Stay sober, be honest, and support my goals instead of threatening them. I can do that. I hope so, because even though I can't trust you with my financial future, I would like to be able to trust you with smaller things over time. What kind of smaller things? Things like keeping promises about when you'll call or visit, being honest about how you're doing with your recovery, being supportive when I have good news or bad news to share. I want to be trustworthy about all those things. Then prove it through your actions, not just your words. I will. My experience with Dad's gambling addiction taught me several important lessons that have shaped my adult life and my career. First, trust has to be earned and maintained through consistent behavior. You can't just trust people because you love them or because they're family members. Second, financial crimes are serious regardless of who commits them. Stealing money from family members isn't less serious than stealing money from strangers. Third, accountability and consequences are necessary for recovery from addiction. Enabling someone's addiction by protecting them from consequences doesn't help them get better. Fourth, young adults have legal rights and resources that they can use to protect themselves from financial abuse, even when that abuse comes from family members. Fifth, forgiveness and trust are different things. You can forgive someone for past behavior while still protecting yourself from future behavior. These lessons have made me more self-reliant and more cautious about financial relationships, but they've also given me the skills and knowledge I need to help other people who are dealing with similar situations. What's the most important advice you give to young people whose parents have gambling problems? People ask me, protect your own financial assets, document everything, and don't be afraid to use legal remedies if necessary, even against their own parents, especially against their own parents, because parents have more access to their children's assets and more ability to cause long-term damage. What about family relationships? Family relationships have to be based on mutual respect and accountability. If someone is destroying your future to feed their addiction, they're not acting like family. But what about love and loyalty? Love and loyalty don't require you to enable someone's self-destructive behavior or to sacrifice your own future to protect them from consequences. What's the difference between helping someone and enabling them? Helping someone means supporting their recovery and their efforts to take responsibility for their actions. Enabling someone means protecting them from the consequences of their actions and making it easier for them to continue their destructive behavior. And in my case, making Dad pay back the money was helping him understand the consequences of his gambling addiction. Letting him keep the money would have been enabling his belief that he could gamble away other people's assets without serious consequences. Do you think your approach worked? I think it worked better than enabling would have worked. Dad has been sober from gambling for 6 years now, and he's maintained steady employment and financial responsibility. And your relationship? Our relationship is honest and respectful, even if it's not as close as it used to be. Do you think that's a good outcome? I think it's the best possible outcome, given what happened. We could have had no relationship at all if Dad had gone to prison, or we could have had a dysfunctional relationship if I had enabled his addiction. What would you say to other young people who are facing similar situations? I would say that you have more power than you think you do to protect yourself and hold people accountable for their actions. Even when those people are your parents. Especially when those people are your parents, because they have the most power to help or harm your future. And if people criticize you for taking action against family members, I would say that real family members don't steal from each other, and that protecting yourself from financial abuse is always appropriate regardless of who the abuser is. Any final thoughts? Just that becoming an adult means taking responsibility for protecting your own interests, even when that means holding the people you love accountable for their actions. And that's what you did. That's what I did, and I'm glad I had the courage to do it. My name is Jake Thompson, and at 18, I learned that loving someone doesn't mean enabling their destructive behavior. It means holding them accountable for their actions, even when those actions are motivated by addiction or desperation. It means protecting your own future from people who would sacrifice it to serve their own needs. And it means understanding that family relationships have to be based on mutual respect and honesty, not just love and loyalty. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is refuse to enable their self-destructive behavior. Sometimes being a good son means forcing your father to face the consequences of his actions. And sometimes becoming an adult means using the legal system to protect yourself from the people who are supposed to protect you. If you're listening to this, and you're dealing with a family member who has a gambling addiction or any other addiction that's affecting your financial security, remember that you have rights and options. You don't have to sacrifice your future to protect someone from the consequences of their choices. You don't have to enable destructive behavior just because you love the person who's engaging in it. And you don't have to feel guilty about taking steps to protect yourself, even if those steps involve legal action against family members. Addiction is a disease, but it's not an excuse for financial abuse or theft. Recovery is possible, but it requires accountability and consequences. And family relationships are worth preserving, but only if they're based on honesty, respect, and mutual support rather than enabling and denial. Sometimes being family means protecting each other from destructive behavior, even when that behavior is driven by illness or addiction. Sometimes love means saying no to someone who's asking you to sacrifice your future for their present comfort. And sometimes the most important thing you can do for someone you love is refuse to make their problems easier to ignore or avoid. That's what I learned when my father gambled away my college fund. And that's what I hope other people in similar situations will learn before it's too late to protect themselves and their futures. Because everyone deserves the chance to build a life based on their own efforts and dreams, not on someone else's promises and addictions. And everyone deserves family relationships that support their growth and success rather than threatening their security and future. That's worth fighting for, even when the fight is against the people you love most.